Talent.
Truth.
Family.
Professionalism.
Definitely ensemble.
Creativity.
Musical.
Joy.
Classy.
Characters.
Highly stimulating.
Generous.
Daring.
Challenging.
Faith.
Quality.
Courage. Tenacity.
Perseverance.
Integrity.
Determined.
Passion.
Risk-taking.
And grow. Tracy and I came out here really just to be in LA for 3 months for pilot season, and ended up, never leaving.
Barry Hines had an apartment building in Sherman Oaks that he was the manager of.
And in this apartment building, there was a vacant apartment.
It was the first reading was at this empty apartment. Barry asked myself, some other people to participate, to just come over and read a play.
What would be really cool, being in a new place, is to call up all these people I knew in New York and other actors I'd heard about also in regional theaters and so forth, and knowing that these people were in LA, and get a hold of them and see if they were interested in maybe getting together in this apartment and doing some readings.
And we all sat on the floor in an empty apartment, and his wife made chocolate chip cookies and put them on a little plate in the middle.
And we didn't have an audience at this time.
No, we
weren't doing it for, we were doing it for ourselves.
We were doing it for fun.
We absolutely were, and for community. And
try something on.
We said, well, that was fun. Want to do it again next week? Let's do a different play.
Every week I would call people with scripts and say, come over to the apartment and you're reading this and you're reading that.
It always came from who wants to do what, and that has maintained. I think that's really a lot of the spirit of Interact is, what do you want to do?
It was fun, it was exciting, and it was great to connect to people. And which is really how the name Interact came about, was because, and I had a hard time selling that name, let me tell you.
Starting in April of 1990 is when it kind of got off the ground as a formal play reading kind of thing.
He started talking about if we could find a space.
Wouldn't it be great?
Wouldn't it be great? If we could find a space, who's on board? And pretty much everyone, if we could, of course, sure, let's. And he started looking.
I got myself over to this little theater over way out in North Hollywood on Hart Street.
And the reason it was called Theater Exchange by the owners at that time was that it originally was, when it was a round, full building, it was a real livestock exchange.
And we rented it for all of $986 a month.
Now I had to sell that to this group of struggling artists in this apartment. And, obviously there was rent to be paid.
Had to have 30 people to evenly divide it up and make it $25 a month affordable, which gave us a few dollars more over and above the actual rent.
We got our 30 people after a few arm twistings, and we decided we're going to rent this space, Theater Exchange.
As long as we don't turn the lights on or use the bathrooms.
That's right.
There was a payphone in the lobby, no phone in the building, but we could use it.
Yeah.
We became Interact, an Actors Collective.
And by the time that came to pass, and we said, yeah, we'll sign the lease, everybody was casting their own plays on a weekly basis. Now, the play readings were sort of they were the nexus of Interact. They were what it was really all about at that point, and it was meeting that once a week. It was a fellowship of sorts,
I had never had such creative freedom, and challenging, and provocative, and informative.
I felt it was my grad school without having to write the papers.
The thing I saw and what I heard were people sitting around in chairs, holding scripts, reading plays, and giving some of the best performances I had ever seen in New York and in LA, and I mean that.
And that was like a religion. You would go there like it was mass, whether or not you were in the play.
At the time, going from even doing those readings in that small apartment to going into the wonderful small theater space that was so intimate
when you were in this space, there was a magic in that room. There was an absolute magic in that room.
There was just something that was inviting about it.
When you work with people and you see them in their underwear, there's a certain kinship that happens.
Really, failure was okay, where you could take a script and think about it, doing it a certain way that you might not ordinarily want to do it, maybe, but say, I'm going to do it this way and just do it. Do the whole 2 hours like that, you know? And more often than not, it was magical.
You knew you could call anybody on the list, and that, you know, that if they could show up, that you'd get to act with really good actors.
And then the first approved company production was a project of Jimmy Gleason's, Under Milkwood.
The first big Interact production that Jimmy Gleason directed and Marilyn and Jim were the producers of.
Peter Zapp had just done a production of a couple of 3 shows that he was sort of the star of. And I said, yeah, I think it would be really nice to involve all of the actors here.
And I was so blown away, I kept thinking that if I wasn't careful, if I leaned back, the whole building would go back. Because the room, the space was so full of poetry.
It was very clear that these people knew how to play character, they knew how to use language, and that this was really a great and important play that we were reading.
I still can't believe that we fit that many people in big costumes and all backstage. And
You're so close, it's like being in their living room. And I'm sure that made a big difference in the storytelling.
I'm always amazed when I look at the full cast picture of Counselor at Law. It's a little, I think, oh my God, this is like the clowns coming out of the Volkswagen.
Just then I got an offer to play this wonderful role in this play that I'd never read called Counselor at Law in Williamstown, Massachusetts. I didn't. I said no to them, but then I was sad. And then I said, wait a minute, I can do this as a Monday night reading at Interact.
We'll do a reading of it and we'll show everybody how great it is and how they all have parts, and then we'll do it.
I think that perhaps the thing that made Interact so unique for me was that they would tackle these huge pieces of material. You know, like Counsel Law, I don't know, there's like 30 characters in it.
You know, I'm just amazed. We went on for months and months and months. It was a hot ticket. It was during the O.J. Simpson trial.
And I remember all kinds of celebrities coming to Counselor especially and saying that they were knocked out by the quality of the work, that it was so rare to see something like that with a cast of thousands and each and every person had defined this little jewel of a character.
the Los Angeles District Attorney actually sat on the steps for Counselor at Law because we were sold out and it was the closing weekend and he really wanted to see it.
And I called John and he said, we don't even have room on the floor. It was that popular, which is wonderful.
But that was Interact's big shining moment where it got a lot of attention.
And we'd been in negotiations to buy the building, and then
we had a whole campaign of sending out.
We had the money to do it, and we realized that it was actually zoned residential, and so there were all kinds of things that suddenly became concerns of the board.
So Backman was incredible. It was, clearly built from the floor up.
We moved in and into a big empty space, and immediately had to turn around and start spending money to improve the bathroom situation, and then we had to get risers, and then we had to kind of soundproof it.
Oh my God, the transformation! I was in there the day that Dan Curran walked it for footage. When it was a blank space with a toilet, actually, or just pipes.
The pipes and the toilet sitting in the center.
In the center of the space of a blank warehouse space.
We were in a part of town that was starting to become a theater part of town.
If you're going to be in the Valley, that was the area to go to.
So I was really part of this new generation that was brought in that theater, and being in that theater was a huge part of what it meant to be a member of Interact. It was that was our clubhouse, and it was literally a minute away from where I lived, so I was always at our clubhouse.
I was excited to find a company that was doing really good, exciting, raw actors theater.
Everyone was always so committed to the art and to the work and just having a good time as well. Support, constant support there.
It was the culmination of years of hard work getting up to that point, because there was such a contagious energy with the whole company. They kept producing and producing and producing, and the productions were great, so they got to produce some more.
I was just so unbelievably astounded that I'd found a theater company that not only did good shows, but were good people and knew what they were doing, and they were equity actors, but they weren't being divas, and I was just like, what?
Whether it was a reading, whether it was an interactivity piece, or a full-on production, people brought the same amount of energy, and that's what I needed.
I can't even remember everything that we did. So many of the readings were so good that I have them in my mind as performances, you know.
That the quality of the work on stage was the thing that seemed to be the leading interest of the company, and I liked that. And I thought that would be fun to be a part of.
And this was truly the beginning of a community.
I think the Interactivity Festival is a brilliant festival. So many plays in a short period of time. If you're acting in them or directing them, you get to immerse yourself in it for a very fast, short period of time, and you store that.
You're in the middle of somebody's obsession. Somebody's part of something, and they've noticed a play and they say, we haven't seen this play for a long time. Let's do that.
And it's just probably the last step before a full production when you're in the rehearsal process.
It's a real festival of art because you don't know what you're going to get. It could be a full-on production. It could be people just standing there with scripts. It could be people sitting there. You don't know.
You can go as far with this in terms of those two performances and what you want to accomplish, or it can be a staged reading that you've worked on, you know, for 4 hours of rehearsal.
Your craft just grows and becomes so flexible and alive.
That's what I thought it was. You know, it's like a bunch of actors in an attic and the audience gets to watch.
The experience was sometimes so intense, and the amount of work put in such a condensed amount of time was sometimes so memorable that it feels like a production, a full production, and certainly we were not the only ones who forgot that we had scripts in our hands.
I would say Interplay is a tremendous program and very beneficial to kids who otherwise would have no access to theater or what theater is about.
Pretty soon the kids were knocking on the door all the time, and you know, one of them wanted to come in and said, he's Claudio, who was, looked around, he said, what is this? And I said, this is a theater. He said, can I come in? And I said, where do you live? He said, I live next door. He said, well, we want to come here. We want to do, you know, we want to act too. Okay, I said, let's just do this for a couple of weeks. You know, the kids will get tired of it. So then the next Saturday, there were 15 people. Oh, we're going to come back next week. Okay. And the next week, there were over 20. And it got up to about 30 kids in a month.
I thought the people in the neighborhood really looked forward to Interplay every summer, because that spoke to that neighborhood.
So to me, Interact is about the mentoring. It's the spirit of the mentor and that artistic flame that we kind of pass from one generation to the next, and the impact that we have on the greater community. The greater community is looking to us.
If the little ducks watch the big ducks shoot heroin, then that's what they do. But if the little ducks watch the big ducks write poetry, then that's what they do. So it's been great to be around the little ducks.